Good morning. Good morning to all our participants. Can you hear me? Hello. Good morning to all our participants in India for this new session organized by the Vedanta Wisdom Trust and Prana. I am not quite sure if you can hear me, but today the session is going to be on intellect and intelligence. I welcome Dr. Janki Santoke in India. It's a joint session. It's the unique session between India and France. So bear with us. My name is Madeleine. I'm a student of Janki Santoke since last January, and I follow her courses on Zoom. I will be translating what I'm saying now to our French audience. Bonjour tous les participants en France et bienvenue à cette deuxième session avec Dr. Janki Santoke qui est en direct en fait d'Inde. La session aujourd'hui, le thème c'est intellect et intelligence. Alors, tout d'abord, nous allons vous montrer une vidéo en anglais que je vais traduire par la suite qui présente Dr. Janki Santoke. Je voulais juste vous donner quelques indications techniques pour l'interprétation. Donc, vous allez voir un petit globe en bas de la page. Vous choisissez la version française ou anglaise et vous pressez le bouton « Terminer ». I will switch back to our English audience in India. For the translations, you will see a small globe on the bottom of your screen. You choose the language that you want to hear it in, English, and then you press Done. It is Ganga who is going to be interpreting into French and also questions from French into English. Now, I will say hello to Dr. Janki Santoke and give her the floor.
I show the video.
Yes, please do.
Life today poses challenges at various levels. Modern day living is threatened by anxiety, depression, failure at work, climate change, and war. But is a life of peace and harmony with fast-paced progress possible or even conceivable? The answer, a resounding yes, lies in the ancient Indian philosophy of Vedanta. This pristine knowledge of life and living, as found in texts like the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, has answers to all human problems and is a pathway to the ultimate goal of human existence, God or self-realization. The Vedanta Wisdom Trust's mission is to educate humanity on this knowledge. Towards this end, it holds weekly online classes attended by learners from all over the world. The Trust's e-learning platform offers a number of self-paced certificate courses. Offline events include outstation retreats, seminars, public lectures, and workshops. Top professionals can learn and apply Vedantic knowledge in their fields through the Trust's corporate workshop services. The Trust's upcoming project, the Vedanta Wisdom University, will be the world's first university with a curriculum based on Vedanta. Along with education that provides a means of livelihood, it aims to empower its students to become tomorrow's leaders who can think creatively and advance humankind as a whole. Spearheading the Trust and its services is Dr. Janki Santoke, a well-known proponent of Vedanta for over 3 decades now, a sought-after teacher of the subject and an author who writes for The Speaking Tree, The Economic Times, and more. Her first book, How Do You Know What You Know, examines thinking and its effects on life. Her next book on happiness is in the publication stage. Janki ji's social media presence continues to grow with the YouTube channel Team Janki Santoke comprising a subscriber base of thousands across continents. To learn more, please visit Life Today poses challenge.
Oui, bonjour. Hello for all the participants. I will now be translating an introduction of Dr. Janki Santoke in French to the participants in France. Bonjour et bienvenue aux participants du webinar en France. Je vais brièvement vous traduire en français cette présentation de Dr. Janki Santoke. Donc, Dr. Janki Santoke est docteur en philosophie. Elle est professeure, auteure, conférencière et personnalité médiatique en Inde. Depuis 30 ans, elle est engagée dans la recherche et dans l'enseignement de l'ancienne philosophie du Vedanta, à travers l'écriture de livres, d'articles dans la presse et d'interviews à la télévision. Elle anime des cours interactifs sur YouTube et Zoom toutes les semaines qui rendent accessibles les textes fondateurs de la philosophie du Vedanta, tels que le Bhagavad Gita, aidant ainsi un grand nombre de personnes à prendre leur vie en main. Dr Santoke organise des retraites spirituelles, des ateliers ainsi que des programmes destinés aux entreprises. Elle dirige la fondation Vedanta Wisdom Trust qu'elle a créée et dont l'objectif est d'établir la première université du Vedanta au monde. C'est un grand privilège de l'avoir parmi nous en France. Juste une dernière indication donc technique pour l'interprétation qui est faite par Ganga. Pressez globe au bas de votre page, vous choisissez la langue et surtout, vous n'oubliez pas de presser le mot « terminé ». Je laisse la parole maintenant à Dr. Janki Santoke. Dr. Janki, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Ganga. Thank you, Madeline. Today we are going to be talking about intellect versus intelligence. We have already done one in this series. There are 4 in this series. Last time we did power of thought. Today we are going to do intellect versus intelligence. So let's just briefly go through what we did last time. We studied that the power of thought is that it forms our life. Our life is created by our thoughts. Now, our thoughts are of 2 types. We classified them. One we call the mind, one the intellect. The mind in us is our emotions, love, anger, greed, hate, jealousy, whatever, all our emotions, good and bad. Our feelings, our likes and dislikes. The entire irrational side of our personality. And then we have an intellect. The intellect is discrimination, reason, judgment. All our thoughts are classified into either mind or intellect. The mind, when we follow the mind, our life gets into problems, into confusion, into stress. We meet with failures and internal dissatisfaction. When we are able to follow the intellect, our life surges upwards and forwards. So the whole business, the whole trick about living life is in our ability to follow the intellect. It is the difference between doing what you feel like and doing what you ought to do. Now, this is what we did last time. This time, let us understand this a little further. Or more importantly, let us remove all the misunderstandings we can have of this. The first and most fundamental misunderstanding we can have about this is that The intellect makes us cold and unemotional. That Vedanta is against emotions in some way. That it frowns on having emotions. That is certainly not true. If we did not have emotions, we would not be human. We would not even be like an animal. Plants and stones don't have emotions. Computers don't have emotions. Objects don't have emotions. Surely we're not trying to become emotionless. What's the point of that? We're not going backwards, right? So plants, stones, inert objects, they don't have emotions. Animals have emotions. Suppose you go on a holiday. You go out of Paris for a few days, you come back, and you have a little puppy at home. You come back after a few days, and the puppy sees you, and it gets so excited to see you. It jumps on you, it jumps on the furniture, it barks, it wags its tail, it gets all excited that you're back. Jumping on you, jumping on the furniture, running around in circles. You may be just as happy to see that puppy as the puppy is to see you. But do you behave like that? If you do, at least don't tell us. You don't jump on the furniture and start running around in circles, do you? So to have emotions, to have noble, pure emotions, is a very good thing. Beautiful thing. A human without emotions is like a paper flower, a flower without fragrance. To have emotions is good. But it is the dignity and prestige of a human to not act on emotions. Every action should come from the intellect. To have emotions is very good. To act on the emotions, to function on the emotions, to behave according to the emotion, indiscriminately, is the behavior of an animal. A human being, the dignity and prestige of a human being is to feel everything, but to do as the intellect bids it to do. Otherwise, we can land up in a lot of trouble. Even good emotions can create a lot of damage. For instance, there was a man who was a very well-to-do doctor, and he was in Penang. Okay, you can't hear me. All right. I don't know what to do. Let me get this closer. Okay, is this good now? Right? Okay. So there was a doctor in Penang who, very wealthy man, who had a sister back in India. And he would send her money because he loved his sister so much. And his well-wishers kept telling him, you know, this is not a sensible thing you're doing. But he wouldn't listen. Till eventually, his friends and well-wishers back in India sent him photographs of his sister, widowed sister. That's why he was sending her money. She was widowed, she had a son. And he felt very bad for her. And he was sending them money in India. And eventually, the well-wishers sent pictures, photographs of this lady, his sister, and her son lying on the streets because they were completely drugged. They were on drugs. They used all that money that he was sending them only to become drug addicts. So you could have noble emotions, good emotions. You want to help people. But even that could cause yourself and others damage. Bad emotions, of course, if you get angry and you start doing something, suppose you're going on the street and you get all angry and you start punching the cop, what do you think will happen? If the cop gives you a speeding ticket and you get angry and you start punching him, what do you think will happen? So you can't afford to act on the emotion. To not feel the emotion means what? Are you a plant or a stone? What are you? But to feel the emotion and let the action be guided by the intellect, that is a human being. That is a person of character. Otherwise, one is merely animalistic. So the first misunderstanding is that somehow emotions are looked down upon. Certainly not. Definitely not. The second misunderstanding that we can have is that intellect makes us do things which we dislike. If you're following the intellect, you'll always be doing things you don't like. That's not very true. Suppose you like listening to a Vedanta lecture. Is Vedanta saying, don't listen to it because you like it? If you like doing your exercises, is Vedanta saying, don't do exercises because you like it? What it is saying is, regardless of whether you like it or not, do what is right. In some instances, you may like it. In some instances, you may not like it. But we have to do the right thing. That is called following the intellect. You don't have to do it. Suppose you love ice cream. You don't have to put salt and pepper on it and have it just because you happen to like it. You don't have to do any of that. You like ice cream. You want an ice cream. You just have to think, is it okay for me to have an ice cream now? If your answer is yes, go ahead and have it. If your answer is no, excuse me, excuse me, don't. So doing what your intellect says doesn't mean ignoring the mind. Consider the mind. And then take whatever you think is the right action. Some people believe that intellect is something that you're either born with or not born with. That's the third misunderstanding. You're born with it or you're not born with it. Intellect for humans is like language, like speech. Humans, all humans have the capacity to speak a language. But to actually speak a language, you have to learn it. So though you're born with the capacity to do this, okay, now you can't maybe teach a donkey to speak French. Or you can't catch hold of a blue whale and say, speak Spanish. You can't do that. Humans can do it, but they have to learn it. Similarly, the intellect. We all have an intellect. But to use it, we have to learn how to do it. Some of us can get extremely good at it. Some of us may not get that good at it. But everybody who learns it, studies it, and improves it will definitely improve their life. So you may think, oh, it must be really painful to do this. Imagine all the time following it. So boring, so painful. Where's the fun of life? Where's the spontaneity of life? How can we enjoy like this? So the fourth misunderstanding is that it's some kind of pain involved in this thing. Frankly, yes, there is pain involved. There is effort involved. There is work involved. It's just like exercise. When you started your yoga class, it was a lot of effort. You had to get into the discipline of it. You had to go to the class. You had to do things that you had not done before. But then what happened? Initially, there was like a speed bump, a lot of difficulty. And then slowly, as you keep doing it, it just gets better and better and better. Not only that in itself, but other aspects of life too. Exactly like that is development of the intellect. In the beginning, it's difficult. There's a certain pain involved. There's a certain resistance, internal resistance. But as you do it, it opens up into ever-enlarging ripples of joy. It covers every aspect of your life and makes everything better. Whether it's relationships, whether it's work, whether it's health, with an intellect, anything you do, you just do it better. That's why the Gita calls it very interesting phraseology it has. It says, this happiness is like poison in the beginning, but like nectar in the end. And the poison is just a little bit, right in the beginning. Thereafter, only pleasure can it give you. The next kind of misunderstanding we can have of this concept is that it is developing the intellect is sort of getting some kind of information or some kind of degrees or learning some, particular knowledge, going to a school or a college, maybe reading up a lot on the net, attending lectures such as this. Not so. When you attend a lecture, when you read up something, in Sanskrit, this is called Shravana, listening. Shravana means listening. It's called listening because in the good old days, the students had no paper or, there was no publication. So it was an oral tradition. So everybody who learned had to learn by simply listening. Today, of course, we have books, we have internet, we have all these things which we can read. So Shravana means, or listening, refers to the taking in of information. Today, those who have a lot of information are called intelligent people. Suppose we go to a party and we meet somebody who was a PhD, he's got a doctorate. He can talk to you on many subjects. He knows history and sociology, and current affairs and astrophysics. You will say this person is a very intelligent person because he has so much information. We are all very impressed with it. Degrees, colleges, all this give us information that make us intelligent. An intelligent person is one who has a lot of information. And intellect is different from this. Completely different. And intellect is that in you which discriminates, which can govern your own mind, which can make you do the right action. There are many people in this world who know a lot, but their actions don't make any sense. They are not able to take the information they have and convert it to something useful to themselves and to others. They are known as data idiots. They have all the data in the world. They don't know what to do with that. It's something like your PC. Suppose your PC has the whole instruction written on it on what to do in case of fire. The entire drill is given. It's there on your PC. But if a fire actually starts, that PC will get burnt in it. It has the information. It doesn't know how to act on it. Like an alcoholic has the information of what alcohol is doing to him, but he cannot act on it. Having the information is called intelligence. The capacity to act on it is the intellect. The capacity to be able to think clearly, to discriminate well, that is the intellect. So what is the difference between intelligence and intellect? Intelligence is the amount of information you have. Intellect is your capacity of discrimination. Eventually means your capacity to act on it. Intelligence is got through Shravana, through listening from external sources, including a talk such as this. Any teacher can only give you intelligence. Nothing more. The world's best teacher can only do that much. If you want an intellect, you will have to get it for yourself. And intellect is derived by oneself. And how do you derive that intellect? You reflect. It's called manana. You reflect on the information you have gained, and as a consequence, the intellect strengthens. So Shravana means listening. It gives you information, gives you intelligence. You can talk about this. You may have intelligence in Vedanta. You may have intelligence on the Bible, on the Quran, on Emerson and Thoreau. All this is intelligence. When my life flowers out well, that requires an intellect. So intelligence is information gained from external sources. Intellect is development of our own capacity to think. Intelligence enables you to quote. Intellect enables you to do. Intelligence impresses others. Intellect enables you to put your head on the pillow at night and go to sleep. What is the use if the whole world thinks I'm brilliant but my own experience of my own life is dissatisfactory. How does that help me? Intellect is the capacity of discrimination. If you, to sort of understand the difference, you can also take again the example of exercise. If you go to the gym, your trainer can tell you many things. You can go and tell those things to other people, but the muscles won't develop until you do those exercises. So similarly, with your information, life won't improve until you actually are able to convert it to a living wisdom. So intellect is discrimination. It leads to control of the mind and therefore direction to action. If you try to control the mind directly, and I'm sure because you're interested in the subject, you must have made many attempts to control the mind. It doesn't work. You tell yourself, I'm going to get up tomorrow early morning. It doesn't work. You tell yourself, I'm not going to have that extra piece of chocolate cake. It doesn't work. If you have to have control of the mind, then you have to have a strong intellect. Intellect means discrimination. I hope it's clear so far. If you have any questions, please do write them in the question box. There will be time later on also. But basically, just to repeat what we have done so far, we have two types of thoughts, the mind and the intellect. And the whole trick of life is to follow the intellect. Then we went through 7 misunderstandings that could possibly arise in trying to use the intellect. Just briefly, to look at them one more time, the intellect makes us cold and unemotional. No, it merely directs emotions. The intellect means you have to do every time what you don't like. Not true. You merely have to decide whether this is the right time to do it or not. That you're either born with an intellect or not. Not true. We're all born with an intellect, but we need to develop it. It will be very painful to do these things. Not true. The beginning is no doubt. You're getting out of your comfort zone, right? So you're going to be uncomfortable. But after that, there's just comfort. Intellect means information. No, it means digested information. You've understood it, so you live by it. Intellect comes from outside. No, teachers and books and internet won't give it to us. We have to do this ourselves. We have to take the responsibility for building our own intellects. If you have an intellect, it leads to control of the mind and therefore direction to action. Intelligence doesn't do this at all. So what is intellect? Intellect is discrimination. Viveka, the Sanskrit word for it is viveka. Viveka or discrimination is the capacity to tell two things apart. And the most basic discrimination is hot and cold, and tall and short, and light and darkness. Tell two things apart. Any two things. You can tell that they are two different things. When you develop your intellect, you can tell important things. You can discriminate between important things, such as poverty and richness. If I ask you, how do you know whether a person is rich or poor? In most cases, we will say, oh, he has $1 billion. He must be very rich. Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. These are rich people. Intellect tells us, may or may not be. Because what is poverty and richness? Richness is defined as having more assets than desires. Poverty is defined as having more desires than assets. If you have so much money that you can buy whatever you want, you're a rich person. If your money does not allow you to buy whatever you want, you're a poor person. So what is wealth? Wealth is when your money or your assets are more than your desires. Poverty is when your desires are more than your assets. So there was a German billionaire who gave up his company and sort of gave it to the government in return for a certain amount of money, a certain type of lifestyle, whatever. So he did this transaction. He wrote an article, interesting article, very interesting article, on how, he's a billionaire, he gave it all, he gave his company away. I mean, he sold it and then he had some money. He gave it to the government and then he sort of gave himself a pension or whatever of many, many millions of dollars. And he wrote an article and saying how his ends don't meet. He said that when I ran my company, I used to change my jet every year. Now I can hardly afford to do it every 3-4 years. And I gave a list. You could feel very sorry for this gentleman because he can barely change his jets every year. He could run so many households, so many properties all over the world. Now he can only run so many. You feel sad for him because he simply doesn't have money to cover his desires. Now imagine a person in India. He has no money. He hardly earns a few dollars a day. But when his friends ask for loans, like petty loans, you know, give me a little bit to buy rice today, give me a little bit to buy bread today. He gives them loans. His own income is like maybe 5,000-10,000. And he's still able to give other people money. I ask you, who do you think is rich? That man who has millions of dollars but cannot make his ends meet? Or this man here who has so much excess money that he's able to give loans to other people? Who is rich? So what is richness and what is poverty? Richness is when your assets exceed your desires. Poverty is when your assets are less than your desires. So who is rich, who is poor? It takes viveka, it takes discrimination to be able to tell. If you simply know how much money a person has, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos. Can we say they're rich? We cannot say they're rich until we know what their desires are. If their desires exceed their assets, then they are poor people indeed. If their desires are less than their assets, they're rich. A simple figure of what the assets are will not tell us whether someone is rich or poor. So discrimination is being able to tell who is rich, who is poor. When will I be rich and when will I be poor? Discrimination is being able to tell the difference between love and attachment. What is love? What is attachment? Our relationships are based on whether we have love or we have attachment. The joy of a relationship is when there is love. And the tragedy of a relationship is when there's attachment. Attachment is a preferential affection for one person, and to keep clinging on to that person and holding on to that person, creating a dependency on that person. Love is universal benevolence. You're able to love everybody. When you're capable of being a loving person, only then are we capable of having a relationship. When two people who are loving people have a relationship, they are not dependent on each other. Their happiness is not dependent on each other. But that relationship will be a deep one. But when that relationship is all about, I'm going to hold on to you. You have to do what I think is right. You have to keep me happy. The person is only agitated. And if both are like that, terrible. That's what you see, right? Two people, they fall in love with each other, and then a few years later, they're divorced. Why is that? Because it was all about, there's a song that says, it's how you make me feel. How you make me feel? Oh no, I'm in charge of how I feel. You don't make me feel anything. When we are dependent on another human being, we create a mess in that relationship. So we look at the Hollywood movies and the Bollywood movies, and they tell us of this perfect love. Who has found this? It's not here to be found. There's no such thing. You cannot make one person the center of your universe and then believe that you're going to have a happy relationship. It's not happening. It's violating the natural laws of life. Intellect can tell us what is love and what is attachment. Love means I want you happy. Attachment says you make me happy. That's the big difference. Am I in this so that you're happy or that you will make me happy? Attachment is a clingy dependency that makes us lose our self-respect, that makes us lose ourselves. Love is ennobling. It makes us find ourselves. It takes an intellect to be able to know what is love, what is attachment. It takes an intellect to be able to know what is work and what is labor. When we go towards our work with a craving, with us saying, I want this and I want that and this and that, and where's my salary? Where is my this thing? I convert the dignity of work into mere labor. But when I go working with a vision, with a cause, this work is worship. And intellect is able to tell what is labor and what is work. How many of us do any work? We're all in labor all the time. And what is the consequence of this labor? You're always stressed and agitated. We're looking forward to weekends and vacations. We want a break. We want to stop work. We want retirement. We want 6-day weeks, 5-day weeks, 4-day weeks, because the work is all labor. If we could get a lot of money without any work at all, would we go to work? When the only reason to go to work is to make a living, this is called labor. It depletes our personality. But when we are able to work for a higher cause, a nobler end, with a vision, this is work which is worship. It is this kind of work that makes us great achievers and also keeps us peaceful in our minds. Labor doesn't achieve anything and makes us terribly stressed and tired, very, very tired. Work energizes us. Labor tires us. Intellect knows the difference between work and labor. Intellect knows the difference between Shreya and Prayer. Prayer, we can translate it into English with a similar word, pray, P-R-E-Y. Means you're praying on others. Why are you praying on others? So that you can get maximum benefit for oneself. Shreya is what is the best for me and the best for everyone. That is called Shreya. The ultimate good for me and for everyone. We know the difference between what is pleasurable and what is good. For me and for everyone else. What can I do that will bring ultimate good to me and to everyone else? Intellect knows the difference between these things. Intellect knows the difference between poverty and richness, between love and attachment, between work and labor, between Shreya and Prayer. Intellect also knows that there is no difference between some things. Intellect makes a difference where there is a difference and knows that in some cases there is no difference, such as what in Sanskrit is called bhoga and yoga. Bhoga is enjoyment. Yoga is spiritual life. The intellect knows that there is no difference between enjoyment and spiritual life. We tend to make a difference between things that ought not to be differentiated. There's no such thing as this is my material life, this is my spiritual life. When we live our life with the right attitudes, this will give us material prosperity and spiritual gain. Spirituality is not about going to a temple or church or mosque. It's not about listening to Vedanta lectures and reading books on. Spirituality is having the right attitudes in the business of living. And that is what makes us spiritual people. Spirituality is not going to the Himalayas or going and sitting in meditation, but what we do every minute of our lives. Every moment are we living with the right understanding, with the right attitudes. If we live life like this, then this is bhoga, this is enjoyment, this is yoga, this is spiritual life. There's no difference. So the intellect does not make a difference between things that ought not to be differentiated. Another thing that ought not to be differentiated, you and I. Why is this difference there? Us and people like us and the other. And the other has to be discarded, disliked. There is no difference. We are all humans. We all bleed when we are cut. We all feel unhappy when our desires are interrupted. We all tend to be a little one-sided. We all tend to be a little ignorant. We're all humans. There's no difference here. The intellect learns how not to make a difference between things that ought not to be differentiated. We are all humans. We need not compete. We can cooperate. We can all work together. We can create goodness for everyone. What need is there for competition? How can I succeed with my brother dying? In history, when people have tried to do that, it has brought tremendous repercussions. When the aristocracy treated the peasants as separate and did not want it, it brought about the French Revolution. When the peasants treated the aristocracy as horrible people, let's guillotine them, which may have been true, but anyway, hated them and hated them, hated them. The reverse problem. You can't hate people. You have to understand that we're all of us a little, what should I say? A little imperfect, a little ignorant. And just as we are so accommodating of our own problems, of our own inabilities, why can't we be so accommodating of other people's inabilities? We make excuses for our faults. Why don't we make excuses for other people's faults? The intellect learns, the intellect does not make a difference between things that ought not to be differentiated. Like bhoga and yoga, like you and I. No competition. It's a cooperation. We're all in this together. So you can see that the intellect is an extremely powerful weapon in our lives. Not using it is like having maybe like a nuclear bomb, but fighting with sticks and stones. It's like having a massive digging machine, but you're digging with hands and nails. It's like you have a car, but you're crawling to your destination. Why? You have an intellect. Use it. Use it for your welfare. But to use it, you have to develop it. But you have it. So, intellect is all about getting some information, knowing a lot of things. Intelligence is getting a lot of information, knowing a lot of things, being able to participate in maybe debates, write books, get degrees, have a university education. All of this is intelligence. Intellect is our capacity of discrimination to know two things apart. And when you know them, you do it correctly. It's an extremely powerful weapon. It's an extremely powerful equipment. It's an extremely powerful device we have as humans to make a wonderful experience out of our life. Most of the time, we use it only to improve the external world. That's why, the animals and we started in the same forest, right? In the same forests of Africa, we all started. Look at where humans have reached. We can connect with each other across the globe. I am in Mumbai, you are in Paris, somebody is in Hyderabad, somebody is in Spain. I don't know where everybody is today. We don't even know, and yet we can connect with each other. This is the power of a human intellect. It is time we realized how much we can use it internally as well to develop our own personality. Because in spite of improving the world so much, you may have noticed that we haven't improved our happiness. Isn't it? If I were to ask you, was your grandfather happier or are you happier? Most people may say maybe their grandfathers were. And yet our world is so much better. Then why were the oldie goldies happier? What went wrong? What went wrong is our intellect was used to improve the external world, but never used to improve the internal world. So no matter how good the external world gets, we continue to be miserable and unhappy. So moral of the story is, let us all pledge to develop our intellect. Okay, so that's it from me today.
Thank you very much, Janki ji. Thank you for this inspiring talk. Merci beaucoup, Janki ji, pour cette conférence très inspirante. Alors, je vous rappelle que on vous donne 2 petites minutes pour laisser poser tout ce que vous avez entendu et vous pouvez poser vos questions dans le petit onglet questions-réponses. Ne le mettez pas dans le chat parce qu'il est fermé, mais dans l'onglet questions-réponses. Je vais dire la même chose en anglais. Thank you very much, Janki ji, again, for our participants in India or English speaking. We will take now 2 minutes of reflection to let everything sink in. And you can happily put your questions in the Q&A button. Please don't use the chat because it will be closed. And so we'll take it from there in 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Nous pouvons peut-être commencer à regarder les questions. Donc, we'll start looking at the questions. The first question is by Joyce. Don't we need a certain amount of intelligence to use the intellect? N'a-t-on pas besoin d'un certain nombre, d'une certaine quantité d'intelligence, de données, pour pouvoir utiliser notre intellect?
Good question, Joyce. Yes, we do need some amount of intelligence, but the two are inversely proportional. The more the intellect, the less the requirement for information. The more the intellect, the greater the requirement for information. So, take somebody like Newton. We are told he saw an apple fall. By seeing the apple fall, he came up with the laws of motion. We also see apples fall. We have no such thought about it. That means his intellect is way better than us. Today, he has given us the laws of motion. For us to understand it also takes time, right? So the more the intellect, the lower the requirement for information. The higher the intellect, the lower the requirement for information. Buddha, for instance. Buddha saw 4 sights. Well, he told us he saw a sick man, an old man, he saw a dead man, he saw a renunciate. He saw 4 sights. And he thought about it so much, he became the enlightened, the Buddha. We have seen so many sights, nothing has come out of it. So the need for information and intellect are inversely proportional. Some people see a little and understand a lot. Some people see a lot, but understand very little. It depends on their intellect. In Hindi, there's a saying, "Akkal badi ki bhains." Is akkal? Akkal means intellect. Is the intellect bigger, or is a bhains? Bhains is a, what should I say? A buffalo bigger. It's like the brain and the brawn. जैसे समझदार को इशारा ही काफी है. For an intelligent person, a person with an intellect, indication is enough for him to understand. For another person, a whole explanation and he still doesn't get it. Right? So the two are, so yes, how much intelligence you require is inversely proportional to how much intellect you have.
Thank you. The next question are a couple of questions together from Arasu, Varsha, and also from Amal regarding how one can develop the intellect, how one can improve the quality of discrimination and what it means concretely. Also, as from what age a human can start developing the intellect.
A human being has to start as early as he or she can and has to continue until he or she is dead. You need to constantly do it. Now, how to do it? For an adult, you study Vedanta. Study Vedanta means 20% reading and 80% thinking. So hear these ideas, hear these concepts, and think about them. Don't accept it. Don't say, yes, it's a very good thing, it's all true. No. Think about it, fight with it. Try and understand in which circumstances it's right and why it's wrong and where it could be wrong. Question it. Keep questioning. Don't question others, question yourself. I mean, you can question others also, but question yourself. How does this apply? Can I see how this has worked in my life? What experiences have I gone through which prove this theory? What experiences have I gone through which disprove the theory? Vedanta claims that everything it says is eternally true. So anything that you find has disproved it means that some understanding is not clear. What is the truth here? To struggle with it. The more we struggle to find that truth, till it becomes our living experience, it becomes our wisdom, to reflect upon it. That is what strengthens the intellect. And you don't do it when you feel like it. You have a fixed time to do it because you need to do this on a daily basis. So every morning when you get up as early as possible, between 4 and 6 if possible, otherwise as early as possible, every single day spend some amount of time developing the intellect, just as you spend on a daily basis. You clean your teeth, you clean your homes, right? You do all these things on a daily basis. You put on the creams, you do your exercises. So much preparation, so much is happening for the body. Intellect is just being ignored. So we have to discipline ourselves for a daily work on developing our intellect. And if we do that, suddenly you will find the whole day going much better, much faster, more efficient. You'll find time created. You won't be short of time. And when you put your head on the pillow, you'll go to sleep. You won't be tossing and turning. You won't need vacations and breaks. So developing of the intellect means training yourself to think, to do manana on these ideas and doing it on a daily basis.
Thank you, Janki ji. Still, I think Amal and Manish are asking, how do you actually concretely in everyday life discriminate? Manish says, I know I understand what's right and what's wrong, what I should do and what I should avoid, but I am unable to live that understanding in my real life. What sort of understanding is it?
Unfortunately, it is not an understanding. It is a conditioning. You have believed something, you've not understood it yet. The moment we understand it, we will do it. For instance, if I knew that this glass of water has got cyanide in it, I won't drink it. So the moment I understand, I don't do those things. If I see a pit in front of me, I don't walk into it. When my room is dark, I bump into objects. But when the light is on, how can I bump into anything? So an understanding that does not convert to action, a knowledge that does not convert to action has to be better understood. The better you understand it, the more you do it. So otherwise, sometimes we just get conditioned with saying, oh, this is good, this is bad. That never helps us. There's no good and no bad. There is what is appropriate for me to do now. Let us say, for instance, you have learned about spiritual life and you have learned that, spiritually developed people are so self-sufficient. In your mind, that converts to, oh, spiritually developed people don't get married, so I must be single. So even though you're like 25 years old, you say, oh, I must be single. And I'm trying, but I've happened to fall in love with somebody. And I say, I can't do what I know is right. But that's not right for you. So the more you understand the concept, you'll figure out what is appropriate at a given time, in a given place, to a particular person. Otherwise, it's all conditioning. That I'm struggling to do something and I can't. Well, stop doing it and try and think about what is really appropriate for me to do.
Thank you, Janki ji. There's one question from Sarma. Can meditation help one control the mind? That is what many institutions say nowadays.
Unfortunately, that's not true. Meditation cannot help control the mind. But over here, we must understand what we are meaning by these words. The way Vedanta uses this word meditation is single pointed focus on a mantra to the exclusion of other thoughts. But other people have other definitions. Okay, they call breathing also meditation. Sometimes they say I'm meditating on whether to get married or not. Okay, so when we're using the word meditation, what we mean is single pointed concentration on a particular mantra, particular thought to the exclusion of all else. If this is what you mean by meditation, then this will not help us govern the mind. The Bhagavad Gita is very clear about this. It says that only a mind which is governed can do this. Meditation is like the PhD of spiritual life. So you can't do the PhD unless you've done the MA and the BA and you've done school. So a lot of us are in the school life of spiritual life and we're trying to do the PhD. So you're failing. You cannot tell a second standard student, do PhD so that you'll do a second standard. You have to say, do second standard so that you will one day do PhD. You don't control you cannot do meditation to control the mind. After you've learned to control the mind, then you do meditation.
Thank you, Janki ji. There's a question from Varsha. Our desires send us on a search for happiness. So when we find love, we are actually looking to fulfill those desires. Obviously, this is attachment. But if we had a developed intellect, we wouldn't be looking for someone else. And then we would not need another person. So what all of us are experiencing is attachment. Is love something we will have to work for thereafter?
Yes, that's true. We all experience attachment because love is the consequence of spiritual growth. As you mature as a person, you become loving. So all that we know so far is attachment. Now your concept that if my intellect was developed, I wouldn't need another person is not quite correct, because then we look upon a developed intellect as something. It's not something. It is a whole path. So at every stage, we have to develop it further and further. There's no developed intellect that doesn't need this. Intellect means that I can do today what is appropriate for me in the right manner. So I suppose I lack self-sufficiency and I need a partner. I'm able to conduct myself properly so that that relationship is a peaceful and happy relationship. I do what is appropriate for me. There is no developed intellect doing X, Y, or Z. It's like being in school, right? In second standard, you do something. In third standard, you have to do something else. And so when you say he's educated or not educated, it's not a one point. There's a pretty large range here. And at every stage, something is appropriate. So we have to figure that out. What is appropriate for me at this stage? In second standard, I cannot give 10 standard exams. In 10th standard, I cannot give second standard exams. So I do what is right for me now in the proper manner.
Thank you, Janki ji. There are two questions relating to asking to explanation between what is effort, labor, and what is work. And the related question is by Mrs. Minal saying, but there are people who need to work to make a living.
Yeah, everybody has to make a living. Everybody has to have money to live. That is obvious. But it's like saying, I need to breathe to live. Of course. But you don't live for breathing. Right? So you don't go to work to make a living. Making a living, of course, it has to come from your work itself, where else will it come from? Or the only other thing is you sponge off somebody, so that's no good. So you'll have to work, and that will sort of take care of your needs. But is that the primary cause of that work? When you do it like that, that's when the work becomes labor. Because now it's almost like bonded labor. You're forced to go to work. Otherwise, you will have no money, and then you cannot pay your rent, and you cannot buy your groceries, and you cannot get heating. That's the stress. So it's not the way we do it. We go to work with some vision. Everybody can go to work with vision. You could be like the janitor in your organization. You could be doing the sweeping and the swabbing and the whatever, vacuuming. But you can go with a vision, right? That I'm going to keep this place clean so that everybody who comes here feels happy about it and is able to work well. The vision. Versus, I have to go to work because if I don't go, then I'm not going to be able to find food. The whole mental framework of that person is very different. When you go with a vision, that is work, that is worship. There's dignity in it. When you go to labor, you're managing director, but all you're thinking of is how much profit am I going to make? Oh, person is all stressed out.
Thank you, Janki ji. We're running out of time. There's only one last question that we can take up, which is, could you please explain again what is poverty versus what is being rich?
Rich means I have more wealth than desires. Poverty means I have more desires than wealth. When I can afford to buy everything I want, I'm a rich person. When I cannot afford to buy everything I want, I'm a poor person. So one way of becoming wealthy is to keep increasing how much I'm getting, how much money I'm getting. But the problem with that is every time I increase my income, my desires also increase. So I continue to have the same feeling, oh, I don't have enough money. I had that feeling when I was earning 1,000 euros. I have that feeling when I'm earning 5,000 euros. I have the same feeling when I'm earning 100,000 euros. I'm continuing my poverty in spite of my wealth going up, which we experience, right? Versus when my wealth goes up, I don't increase my desire simultaneously. And I always keep it a little below. Then I'm always experiencing abundance. I have more than enough. I have plenty. So I feel like I'm a wealthy person. Like, not feel, I mean, I'm enjoying the fact that I'm a wealthy person. Otherwise, no matter what my income, I am suffering poverty.
Thank you, Janki ji. Thank you very much for this inspiring talk. The forthcoming events are going to be on the 5th of February from 12:30 p.m. This is answering a question of Deepak. Yes, the new time is 12:30 p.m. in India. Ganga, I think you're translating in French. Le prochain événement, c'est à la dinde et la fourmi, le sujet qui aura lieu le 5 février de 8h à 9h15. The next session on the 5th of February is going to be the poem, The Turkey and the Ant. The session after, which is the 12th February, is going to be 12:30 p.m. in India. La dernière session, ce sera le sujet de l'art du succès, le 12 février, toujours à 8h jusqu'à 9h15. Je voudrais également attirer votre attention sur la retraite spirituelle que nous allons faire avec Janki ji dans l'Essonne du 1er au 5 avril. Contactez s'il vous plaît Prana, Ganga pour avoir plus de détails. The spiritual retreat in France will take place from the 1st to the 5th April with Janki ji, who will come from India with a group. And the topic of the retreat is going to be Vedanta, the technique of living. The location is half an hour away from Paris in the Assoc area. please contact asso.prana. You can see the mail address on screen. And last but not least, there is a talk that is going to be in Paris on Wednesday, the 5th of April, 7:30 p.m. in France. You can see the address. It's le Centre Montgalais in the 12th arrondissement. Il y a une conférence que Janki va donner à Paris le mercredi 5 avril à 19h30 au Centre Pina-Bausch, au passage Saint-Ville, dans le 12e arrondissement à Paris. Je vous remercie d'être venus. Voici aussi un tableau avec toutes les classes que vous pouvez trouver de Janki sur Zoom ou alors YouTube. Vous pouvez retrouver toutes les indications sur votre tableau. Je vous remercie beaucoup d'avoir participé à cette session. Je vous dis à la semaine prochaine à 8h du matin. Thank you very much for participating. I will now leave Ganga to tell us the concluding words. Thank you very much.
Bon, ben voilà, on va remercier encore une fois toute l'équipe qui a mis en place ce webinaire. Comme vous le savez, c'est un effort commun que nous mettons en place pour avoir accès justement à cette parole inspirante. Et on vous retrouve la semaine prochaine. Thank you very much, Dr. Santoke. See you next time.
Thank you.